The kitchen was filled with the aroma of pumpkin pies and cinnamon. Anna was adjusting the turkey platter on the dining table, meticulously decorated as she did every year. Her mother, Martha, was cheerfully commenting on how everyone was finally together again, while her older brother Chris uncorked a bottle of wine in the living room. For Anna, that moment was the pinnacle of family unity, a pause from the chaos of everyday life. She believed nothing could ruin that day. When Ethan walked through the front door, she could barely contain her smile. But the smile quickly faded when she noticed he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a young blonde woman with a timid appearance, clearly pregnant. The woman was holding her belly with one hand and avoiding eye contact. Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of a fork falling to the floor. "Anna, this is Chloe," Ethan said without hesitation. "And we're expecting a baby." Autumn transformed the streets of Boston into a canvas of orange and gold hues. At Martha Williams's house, the traditional Thanksgiving gathering was taking shape as always. Lively voices, carefully prepared dishes, and an atmosphere steeped in nostalgia and love. For Anna, the youngest of the Williams family, this event was a sanctuary of happy memories, far removed from the pressures of her career as a marketing consultant and the insecurities that lingered around her. Anna had been married to Ethan for 8 years. He was the kind of man who seemed perfect on the surface, a charming smile, contagious ambition, and the ability to command any room he entered. In the early years, Ethan had been her safe harbor, but over time something in their marriage had changed. Small cutting remarks, prolonged absences, and hollow excuses had begun to erode what once felt like a solid relationship. Still, Anna clung to the hope that things could return to how they used to be. That afternoon, Anna was focused on ensuring everything went perfectly. She had spent hours adjusting the table decorations, arranging seats, and preparing the main dish, just as she did every year. Her older brother Chris had already arrived with his wife and kids. Conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and stories of the past. "Ethan's taking a while," Martha commented as she helped Anna in the kitchen. "Have you talked to him?" "He said he was on his way," Anna replied, forcing a smile. Deep down, she felt that familiar unease, an anxiety she could never quite name. Ethan had been running late a lot lately, always with explanations. That sounded plausible, but never enough to ease her growing distrust. When the front door opened, Anna felt a wave of initial relief, but she quickly realized something was off. Ethan entered with steady steps, but beside him stood a young woman Anna didn't recognize. The stranger had blonde hair tied back in a simple ponytail, light eyes that avoided direct contact, and one hand resting on her visibly pregnant belly. The room fell silent. Chris, who had been pouring wine, froze mid-action. Martha, who had been relaxed until that moment, dropped the spoon she was holding, splattering mashed potatoes across the counter. The children, who had been engrossed in a game, stopped playing and looked at the adults in confusion. Anna, for her part, felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. For a moment, she believed it was all a misunderstanding, something that could be corrected with words. But Ethan shattered the silence with an unsettling calm. "Anna, this is Chloe," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "We're expecting a baby." The seconds that followed felt like an eternity. The words echoed in Anna's mind like thunder as her heart raced. She looked at Ethan, searching for any sign of remorse or regret, but all she found was indifference. Chloe stood silently beside him, saying nothing, as if she were part of the furniture. "What are you saying?" Anna finally managed to whisper, her voice trembling. Her mother tried to intervene, but Anna raised a hand, signaling for silence. She needed to hear it directly from Ethan. "I thought you should know," he continued, the calm in his voice an invisible slap to her face. "Chloe and I have been together for a while." The tears came before Anna could stop them, not just tears of pain but of humiliation. She looked around, seeing the stares of her family members, some filled with pity, others with discomfort. This was the event she had planned so carefully, the day meant to symbolize unity and love, now turned into a stage for her public humiliation. How could you do this? Anna asked, her voice rising. But Ethan didn't answer. He merely shrugged, as if the answer didn't matter. Chloe, still silent, seemed to shrink into herself but made no move to step away from him. Anna, maybe we should talk about this later, Chris suggested, trying to defuse the situation. But for Anna, the damage was already done. She couldn't move from that spot. Her legs felt frozen. All she could do was stare at the man she loved, or thought she loved, and realize that he had destroyed her without a second thought. The room seemed frozen in time after Ethan's revelation. Every sound, from the crackling of the fireplace to the faint clink of a glass being set on the table, felt like an affront to the uncomfortable silence hanging in the air. Anna, her hands trembling, searched for a response, but everything inside her felt shattered, like broken glass. Ethan, however, remained composed, as if what he had just said was an insignificant detail of his life. You knew how important today was to me, Anna whispered, her voice heavy with an unbearable weight. Why did you choose this moment to humiliate me? Ethan shrugged, as if the answer were obvious. I thought it'd be better to get it out in the open all at once, in front of everyone. You deserve the truth, and I didn't want to wait any longer. Anna tasted the bitterness of betrayal in her throat. Ethan's words felt calculated to hurt her, each syllable a precise blow. Chloe, the young woman beside him, appeared uncomfortable, fidgeting with a ring on her index finger, but she made no move to leave. Chris was the first to act, placing an arm around Anna like a shield. Have you lost your mind, Ethan? He growled, his voice brimming with anger. How dare you show up here like this? Chris, this isn't your business, Ethan replied, his tone laced with indifference, further provoking Anna's brother. Anna and I are adults. We can handle this ourselves. Handle it? Anna finally erupted, shrugging off Chris's arm. You destroyed our marriage, Ethan. What exactly is there to handle? Martha, who had been frozen in shock, finally intervened. Anna, sweetheart, maybe we should all calm down. There's no need to air everything out right now. Air it out? Anna laughed, a dry, desperate sound. Do you think I'm the one airing this, Mom? It was him. He brought her. Her eyes darted to Chloe, who remained silent, though the flush on her face betrayed her shame. The tension in the room was unbearable. Sensing there was nothing more to say, Ethan took Chloe's hand. Let's go, he said, sounding tired of the spectacle he himself had created. As he moved toward the door, Anna stepped forward. Don't think you're walking away that easily, Ethan. You're not just going to turn your back and carry on like nothing happened. I'll make sure you remember what you've done to me. He paused, just for a moment, and cast a look that was a mixture of exhaustion and disdain. Do whatever you want, Anna. My life with Chloe doesn't have room for your drama. With that, he left, leaving her standing there surrounded by the shattered fragments of her dignity. After Ethan and Chloe left, the house sank into a heavy atmosphere. The family members avoided looking directly at Anna, their expressions oscillating between pity and discomfort. She, on the other hand, stood frozen in the kitchen like a statue, holding a forgotten glass of wine in her hand. You need to eat something, Martha suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Eat? Anna murmured. I spent weeks planning this dinner, believing it would be a happy moment, and now all I can think about is how my life is over. Chris pulled out a chair and placed it next to his sister. Your life isn't over, Anna, he said, trying to sound firm. But I'll tell you one thing, you can't let him walk away unscathed. Not after this. And what am I supposed to do, Chris? Anna asked, her voice rising. Scream more? Throw a plate at the wall? He doesn't care. He made that perfectly clear. Chris didn't reply. Instead, he wrapped an arm around her again, and this time Anna didn't resist. She allowed herself to cry openly, her sobs echoing in the kitchen. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alone. The man she loved, the one she once envisioned as the father of her children, had destroyed everything with a cruelty she never thought possible. In the days that followed, Anna tried to maintain her routine. She went to work, responded to emails, and offered mechanical smiles to her colleagues, but inside, she was shattered. Every unread message on her phone felt like a potential bomb, a comment, a question, or worse, another public humiliation on social media. The world seemed to have frozen at the moment Ethan walked in with Chloe, and Anna couldn't move forward. Her mother called daily, urging her to come to church with her. Chris sent supportive messages, always offering help, but Anna turned it all down. She didn't want pity. What she wanted more than anything was to understand how things had come to this. On a particularly quiet evening, Anna did something she had avoided since that fateful event. She opened Ethan's Instagram profile. He hadn't deleted anything. Photos of the two of them on vacations, birthday celebrations, moments that now felt cruel. But in the latest post, a detail caught her attention. Chloe, her belly visibly round, smiled beside Ethan, who had his arm around her waist. The caption read, "A new chapter. It was always you, Chloe." The air left her lungs. He hadn't just destroyed their past. He was publicly building a future with someone else. In that moment, something inside Anna began to shift. A blend of anger and determination took hold of her. If Ethan wanted a new chapter, she would start hers too. But hers would be something he would never forget. Anna hadn't slept properly in days. Every time she closed her eyes, Ethan's words echoed in her mind. A new chapter. It was always you, Chloe. Those phrases, so deliberate and cruel, etched themselves into her memory like sharp blades. Yet it wasn't just the pain consuming her now. There was something more, a visceral need to uncover the whole truth. Anna knew Ethan hadn't simply stumbled into an affair. Something deeper, more calculated, was hidden beneath the surface. One morning, after a sleepless night, Anna decided to act. She picked up her phone and called Chris. He was the only person she trusted completely, someone who had never hesitated to stand up for her. When he answered, his voice was filled with concern. "Anna, how are you holding up?" "I want the truth, Chris, about Ethan. I want to know how long this has been going on, who knew, and why no one told me." Chris hesitated. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Sometimes digging too deep can hurt even more." "I'm already hurt," Anna said firmly. "What I can't stand is living with lies." Chris didn't need much time to investigate. He had contacts in Boston and knew exactly who to approach. Within days, he came back with information Anna wasn't prepared to hear. "Anna, I found something," he said, sitting in her living room. She was curled up on the couch, holding a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. "Just tell me, Chris, Ethan and Chloe, they've been together for at least 2 years, and apparently this isn't the first time he's cheated." Anna's eyes widened as the blood drained from her face. 2 years? Her voice was a whisper of disbelief. "While he slept in my bed, while I made plans for our future, he was with her?" Chris nodded, visibly uncomfortable. "And more. Chloe worked at his company, that's how they met." Anna felt a knot tighten in her throat. Everything clicked into place. The nights Ethan claimed he was working late, the sudden business trips, the growing coldness. But the final blow came when Chris pulled a brown envelope from his backpack and placed it on the coffee table. "And there's this," he said reluctantly. Anna opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were a series of documents. Contracts, signed by Ethan, suspicious bank transactions, and photos of him and Chloe together, clearly taken by a private investigator. But what caught her attention was a letter written by Ethan to Chloe, dated 8 months ago. In it, he promised to leave everything behind and start over with her and the baby. "He planned to leave me a long time ago," Anna murmured, more to herself than to Chris. "And he didn't even have the decency to tell me." That night, Anna decided to confront Ethan. She didn't want tears or shouting this time. She wanted answers. She wanted to look him in the eye and understand why he had chosen to destroy what they had. She found him at his new house, a modest property in the suburbs he had bought to live with Chloe. Ethan opened the door, visibly surprised to see her. "Anna, what are you doing here?" "I came for answers," she said, pushing past him, to step inside. 2 years, Ethan. You were cheating on me for 2 years. And not just that. You were planning to leave me while I still believed we had a future together. Ethan sighed, as if already exhausted by the confrontation. "Look, I don't want to fight. I've said everything that needed to be said." "No, you haven't," she snapped, her voice sharp. "You never gave me a chance to understand why, Ethan. Why humiliate me like this? Why destroy what we had with such cruelty?" He crossed his arms, a defensive gesture. "Because I didn't love you anymore, Anna. There's no easy way to say it. Our marriage was over long before Chloe came into the picture." His words hit Anna like a punch, but she refused to show weakness. "If it was over, why didn't you have the decency to tell me? Why weren't you man enough to end it before starting something else?" "Because I knew you wouldn't accept it," Ethan replied, his tone cold. "You always had to control everything, Anna. I knew it would be hell." She stood in silence, for a few seconds trying to process his words. Finally, she lifted her chin and looked at him with a determination he hadn't expected. "You destroyed everything good I believed existed between us, Ethan, and I will rebuild myself. But you'll have to live with the weight of what you've done." Before he could respond, Anna turned and walked out the door, not looking, back. Back at her house, Anna began to formulate a plan. She knew she needed to rebuild her life, but above all, she wanted to ensure Ethan didn't walk away unscathed. He had destroyed her trust, her dignity, and her peace, and she was determined to make things right. It wasn't revenge she sought, it was closure, something that would allow her to move forward without carrying the burden of what he had done. As she stared out the window into the dark sky, an idea began to take shape in her mind. Ethan had underestimated her strength, but Anna was about to prove she was far more resilient than he had ever imagined. Anna woke up that morning carrying the weight of a decision she knew she had to make. For weeks, she had been consumed by pain and humiliation, but something within her had shifted. It wasn't just about Ethan and Chloe anymore. It was about herself, about how she would allow this chapter to define her life. She knew she needed a plan, not just to move forward, but to reclaim the control he had taken from her. Above all, she knew she had to confront the moral dilemmas now surrounding her. Vengeance or redemption? Anna's first step was to seek guidance. She needed to understand how to protect her interests, both emotionally and financially. Sitting in the office of a renowned divorce attorney, she felt for the first time in weeks that she might regain control. "You have a strong case, Anna," said the attorney, David Hale, after reviewing the documents Chris had gathered. "But it's going to be a tough battle. Ethan is skilled at spinning narratives in his favor. With the baby on the way, he might position himself as a man just trying to start fresh." Anna took a deep breath, absorbing every word. She knew Ethan was manipulative, but hearing it from a professional made her realize she couldn't afford to waver. "I don't want anything beyond what's rightfully mine," Anna replied firmly. "But I also want him to understand that he can't destroy lives without consequences." David nodded. "Then we'll begin. I need everything you've got. Messages, financial transactions, anything that shows he acted in bad faith." The days that followed were spent buried in old documents and message histories, revisiting moments that had once seemed insignificant, but now exposed the depth of Ethan's betrayal. Each piece of evidence was a painful reminder, but it also became a weapon she knew could help her rebuild her strength. As Anna constructed her case, she began to feel the emotional toll of her decision. Her mother, Martha, tried to convince her to move on and avoid stooping to Ethan's level. "Anna, sweetheart," Martha said one rainy afternoon as they shared tea. "Sometimes forgiveness is the only way to find peace." Anna looked at her mother with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. "Forgiveness, Mom? How can you ask me to forgive him? He humiliated me in front of everyone. He destroyed everything we built together." "I know," Martha replied with sadness. "But hate can consume you. And you deserve more than that. You deserve to be happy." Her mother's words lingered in Anna's mind for days. Part of her knew Martha was right. Another part, however, felt that letting Ethan go unpunished would perpetuate the cycle of emotional abuse he had initiated. One afternoon, while reviewing documents at home, Anna received an unexpected message from Ethan. It was brief, direct, and completely out of character. "Can we talk? Just the two of us. I want to make things right." For a moment, Anna almost laughed. His audacity was unbelievable. But something inside her compelled her to agree. She needed to hear him out, not because she believed in reconciliation, but because she wanted to understand what he really wanted. They met at a quiet cafe in the city. Ethan arrived on time, displaying the same confidence he always had. But there was something different about him, a faint trace of weariness, maybe even regret. "Anna, thank you for coming," he began, stirring his coffee. "I didn't come for you," she replied coldly. "I came for me." Ethan sighed. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can never fix. But Chloe's pregnant, and I need to be there for her. That doesn't mean I don't have respect for you." "Respect?" Anna asked, letting out a bitter laugh. "You destroyed my world and still had the nerve to humiliate me in front of my entire family. And now you're talking about respect?" Ethan averted his gaze, unable to respond. "Why did you ask to meet me, Ethan?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I want this to be as painless as possible for both of us," he finally said. "We can work this out without fighting, without airing more of our dirty laundry." Anna leaned forward, fixing him with a piercing gaze. "There's no painless way to fix what you've done. But let me tell you one thing. You may have destroyed our marriage, but you won't destroy the woman I am. And that's something you'll have to live with." After that meeting, Anna felt a renewed sense of strength. She realized she didn't need Ethan's approval or his understanding. What she needed was something he could never take from her own dignity. With the help of Chris and David, she began planning the next chapter of her life. She knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but for the first time in months, she felt she could overcome anything. As she gazed out her bedroom window that night, watching the leaves fall from the trees, Anna smiled for the first time since the fateful event. It wasn't a smile of complete happiness, but one of determination. She knew Ethan wouldn't be her end. He would simply be a chapter, and she was ready to write a new story. The storm brewing on the horizon seemed a perfect reflection of the chaos still residing in Anna's heart. The court hearing was set for the next day, but what Ethan didn't know was that Anna had prepared something that would not only expose him, but ensure he felt the full weight of his choices. He wouldn't destroy her without facing the consequences. That night, Anna meticulously reviewed every document, every piece of evidence, and every detail to be presented. Photos of Ethan with Chloe, financial transactions showing their joint, funds being used to support his mistress, and messages proving he had planned his betrayal for years. Everything was in place. Still, Anna knew the courtroom battle would only be part of the resolution. The true victory would be reclaiming her life and facing Ethan one last time, proving she had survived and emerged stronger. The courtroom was packed. Family members, friends, and even distant acquaintances had shown up, drawn by the morbid curiosity of such a public divorce. Chloe was there too, her belly now visibly larger, sitting beside Ethan, who wore a mask of calculated calm. Anna entered with steady steps, dressed in an elegant black suit that exuded confidence. She felt the weight of the stares, some filled with pity, others with admiration, but none of it mattered. Her focus was singular, ensuring Ethan understood that she wasn't someone he could simply discard. When the judge called the case to order, David, Anna's attorney, presented the evidence with surgical precision. Photos of Ethan's extramarital affair, records of misappropriated marital funds, and even a text message where Ethan admitted his intention to keep the affair hidden until it was convenient. Each piece of evidence chipped away at Ethan's composed facade. When Anna took the stand to testify, the room fell into an intense silence. She began by recounting her life with Ethan, how he had once been her greatest ally, and had become her greatest betrayer. The words came easily, laced, with pain, but also with a strength that surprised even her. "What Ethan did to me wasn't just betrayal," she said, locking eyes with him. "It was the murder of trust, dignity, and the love I once had for him. But what he didn't realize was that in trying to destroy me, he gave me something I didn't know I had, the strength to rebuild myself." When the trial concluded, Anna walked out of the courtroom victorious. The judge had ruled in her favor, awarding her the house they had built together and half of the couple's assets. Ethan was also ordered to pay substantial compensation for the misuse of marital funds. Outside, as the crowd began to disperse, Ethan approached her. Chloe stood a few steps away, visibly anxious, but Ethan seemed determined to speak with Anna. "You got what you wanted," he said, his voice a mix of bitterness and resignation. "Are you happy now?" Anna took a deep breath before responding. "Happy? No, Ethan. This was never about happiness. It was about respect, something you never knew how to give me." "I loved you, Anna," he said, grasping for a shred of dignity. "Even if you don't believe it." She laughed, but it was hollow, devoid of any warmth. "If that was love, then I never want to love again." With that, Anna turned and began walking away. Chloe called out to Ethan, her voice tinged with anxiety, but he remained rooted in place, watching Anna disappear into the crowd. For the first time perhaps he truly felt the weight of what he had lost. Back in her house, now entirely her own, Anna felt something different. It wasn't exactly joy, but a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She spent the evening painting one of the living room walls, something she'd always wanted to do, but that Ethan had never approved of. Each brushstroke felt like a small step toward freedom. The next day, Chris stopped by, bringing coffee and a proud smile. "You were amazing yesterday, Anna," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Not just in court, but in everything. You proved that no one can destroy you." "It wasn't easy," she replied, smiling for the first time in weeks. "But I think in the end I needed to go through this to find myself again." Chris nodded, saying nothing more. He knew words weren't necessary at that moment. The silence between them was filled with understanding and support. A month later, Anna published an article in a local magazine about her experience. The piece, titled, "How Betrayal Saved Me from Myself," went viral, resonating with thousands of women who had faced similar struggles. Ethan was now just a memory, a scar she carried, but that no longer defined who she was. Chloe gave birth months later, and Anna heard through rumors that Ethan was facing financial and personal difficulties. But that no longer mattered. What mattered was that Anna had found her way back to herself. That autumn, as she walked through the streets of Boston, Anna looked up at the sky, feeling the cool wind against her face. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she also knew she was strong enough to face them. For the first time, in a long time, she felt free. Boston's winter arrived, signaling the end of a chapter. As snow blanketed the streets, Anna sat in her favorite armchair, wrapped in a wool blanket her mother had made years ago. In the living room, the soft light of the late afternoon reflected off the Christmas tree, decorated by her for the first time in years. The silence of the house felt comforting, almost welcoming, a well-deserved pause after the turbulent year she had endured. Anna held a cup of hot tea in her hands, watching the steam rise as she reflected on everything that had happened. The public betrayal, the painful divorce, and the emotional battles felt like a lifetime ago, though the scars they left were still tangible. Yet, something within her was different now. The pain was no longer a burden. It had become a part of her story, a foundation upon which she had begun to build a new version of herself. After finishing her tea, Anna picked up the journal resting on the coffee table. Journaling was a habit she had recently rekindled, a way to process her emotions and make sense of the chaos. Flipping through the pages, she came across an entry written the day after the previous year's Thanksgiving. The words reflected her despair and confusion. "I feel like everything I believed in was a lie. I don't know how to move forward from here. How will I face the people who witnessed my humiliation? How will I ever trust again? Reading those lines brought a pang to her chest. It felt like revisiting a version of herself that no longer existed. She picked up her pen and began writing on the blank page before her. A year later, I realized I survived the worst. The pain shaped me, but it did not define me. Today, I am stronger, more aware of who I am and what I deserve. Ethan was a chapter, but he will not be the end of my story. I have plans, dreams, and a future no one can take from me. When she finished, she closed the journal with a soft smile. For the first time in a long while, she felt whole. After the divorce, Anna decided to pursue something she had always postponed. Using the financial compensation from the settlement, she opened her own marketing agency. She called it Phoenix Strategies, a symbolic name for her rebirth. She chose a small office in downtown Boston, decorating it with plants, motivational posters, and minimalist furniture. Pouring herself into her work, she embraced the world of entrepreneurship, building a small but dedicated team. Her first client was a local artisan company, and the success of their campaign attracted new contracts. Every project she led felt like a personal victory, a reminder that she was capable of creating something meaningful on her own. The agency grew slowly but steadily, and Anna finally felt she had regained control of her life. Despite distancing herself from some people after Ethan's betrayal, Anna found unwavering support in her mother and brother. Martha, who had once urged forgiveness, now admired her daughter's strength with renewed pride. One quiet evening, as they shared dinner at Martha's house, Anna finally expressed her gratitude. "Mom, I don't know if I would have made it through all this without you and Chris. Even when I felt completely alone, you both never gave up on me." Martha smiled, reaching for Anna's hand across the table. "I always knew you were strong, my dear. You just needed time to realize it yourself." Chris, who had been quietly listening to their conversation, raised his glass of wine. "To my little sister's rebirth, may you never again accept less than you deserve." The three of them toasted, their laughter filling the house with a lightness they hadn't felt in a long time. Although Anna tried to avoid hearing about Ethan, rumors inevitably reached her. Chloe had given birth to a baby boy, but the couple's life was far from the fairy tale Ethan had envisioned. Through mutual friends, Anna learned that Ethan's finances were in shambles. The trial and public exposure had damaged his professional reputation, and he was struggling to maintain the lifestyle he had flaunted for years. In a rare moment of curiosity, Anna checked his social media profile. Once filled with meticulously curated photos of vacations and declarations of love, it was now empty. He had deleted almost everything, a reflection of the life that seemed to have crumbled around him. Anna felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. She didn't wish for Ethan's downfall, but knew he was paying the price for the choices he had made. Over the months, Anna devoted herself to rediscovering who she was. She traveled alone to places she'd always wanted to visit: New Orleans, the mountains of Vermont, and even a sunny weekend in California. She walked the streets of these places with a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she was living for herself, without external expectations or the need for anyone's approval. During one of these trips, sitting at a lakeside cafe in Vermont, an older woman struck up a conversation. "You look at peace," the woman remarked with a smile. "It's the first time I've felt this way in a long time," Anna replied, surprised by her own honesty. "Then you've found something precious," the woman said with a knowing nod. "Keep protecting it." One year after the fateful Thanksgiving dinner, Anna returned to her mother's house to celebrate the holiday again. This time there was no tension, no unmet expectations, just family gathered together, laughing, cooking, and sharing stories. As she placed the final dish on the table, Chris rested a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Anna. You're where you're meant to be." She looked at the table full of carefully prepared food, and at the faces of those who had stood by her through everything. "Yes, I did," she replied, feeling a wave of gratitude. Anna knew her journey didn't end there. There would still be challenges and moments of uncertainty, But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. She had risen from the ashes, and now, finally, she was free to write her own story. Winter had passed, and with the arrival of spring, Boston bloomed with vibrant colors, mirroring the renewal Anna was experiencing within herself. A year and a half after the event that had changed her life, she was stronger, more confident, and above all, completely in control of her own destiny. That morning, Anna strolled through the streets of downtown Boston, the fresh breeze playing with her loose hair. She wore a beige coat over a navy dress, a simple outfit that highlighted her newfound demeanor, upright, determined, as if she carried an invisible shield. Her destination was the office of her agency, Phoenix Strategies. Upon arrival, she was greeted by Lisa, her assistant, holding a bouquet of flowers and an enthusiastic smile. "Anna, congratulations. We just signed a contract with the biggest tech company in the city. They said they loved the presentation you gave last week." Anna laughed, accepting the bouquet. "That's amazing, Lisa. Let's schedule a meeting to go over the next steps." As she walked to her office, a wave of pride washed over her. All of it, the agency's growth, the client praise, the respect of her team, was the result of her hard work and her choice not to let Ethan destroy her. That afternoon, while having coffee with Lisa at a nearby cafe, Anna noticed a familiar face across the street. It was Ethan. He looked different. His shoulders were slouched, his gaze distant, his expression weary. He walked alone, devoid of the air of superiority he used to carry. Chloe wasn't with him, and Anna wondered if they were still together. For a brief moment, she felt a mixture of emotions: compassion, nostalgia, perhaps even a flicker of pain. But above all, she felt relief. Ethan was no longer a central figure in her life. He was just a closed chapter, a memory that no longer dictated her present or her future. Without letting him notice her, Anna turned her attention back to her conversation with Lisa, leaving Ethan behind both literally and symbolically. Months later, during a trip to New York for a marketing conference, Anna met someone unexpected. His name was Michael, a financial consultant attending the same event. He was different from Ethan in every way: reserved, kind, and genuinely engaged in their conversations. At first, Anna was hesitant. She was afraid to open her heart again, afraid the past might repeat itself. But Michael didn't rush her. He approached her gently with patience, showing her that trust could be rebuilt slowly. During dinner on the last evening of the conference, Michael said something that stayed with her. "You're incredible, Anna. And I'm not just talking about your intelligence or your work. I'm talking about how you rebuilt yourself. That's something few people can do." She smiled, not responding immediately. For the first time, she realized she might be ready to let someone into her life again, but this time on her terms and at her own pace. A few months after meeting Michael, Anna decided to write a letter to herself, something she had long wanted to do. Sitting at her desk at home, with pen and paper in hand, she began. "Dear past Anna, I know your heart is broken right now. I know you feel like you'll never recover, as though you're doomed to live in the shadow of Ethan's betrayal. But let me tell you something. You will survive. Not just survive, you'll thrive. You'll start your own business, surround yourself with people who value you, and most importantly, you'll learn to value yourself. Ethan, he'll be nothing more than a distant memory. You'll realize the power he had over you was only the power you allowed him to have. So keep moving forward. Cry, scream, feel the pain, but never give up. There's a version of you in the future who is so proud of who you will become." When she finished the letter, Anna folded the paper and tucked it away in a drawer. It was a symbol of her growth, something to remind her of how far she'd come whenever self-doubt crept in. 2 years after Ethan's betrayal, Anna was celebrating another Thanksgiving at her mother's house. The table was full of laughter and stories. Chris and his kids were playing in the living room, while Martha was putting the finishing touches on an apple pie. Michael was there, seamlessly integrated into the family as though he had always been a part of it. He was helping serve drinks, laughing at one of Chris's jokes. As Anna looked around at everyone, she felt a wave of gratitude. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was hers. Before sitting down at the table, she took a moment for herself. She gazed out the window at the starry sky and whispered softly, "I did it." Anna's story wasn't one of revenge or suffering, but of resilience. She had turned pain into strength, abandonment into independence, and wounds into lessons. Ethan's betrayal wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. Anna was a woman reborn, and her future was as bright as the stars on that Thanksgiving night. That was Anna's story, a woman who turned the pain of betrayal into strength and rebuilt her life. What about you? Have you experienced something similar? What would you do if you were in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. See you next time.